We have a city to burn.
Do you know what the through line is between Fallout, Overwatch, and Cyberpunk? They all take place in the year 2077. Well, in Fallout's case, 2077 is just a really important year for the universe. Plus, it marks the 100-year anniversary of Star Wars. By the way, if that doesn't make you feel old, we're almost closer to 2077 than we are 1977. I hope that helps. But I just recently discovered this and was kind of stunned, thinking there had to be some reference, some old reason for why it's always come down to 2077 for a year in the near future. Maybe like how Dune wrote all of the sci-fi tropes to begin with, perhaps another old fundamental sci-fi story influenced writers today to mark 2077 as their year of choice. In reality, the answer is much more boring than it being some foretold date in the annals of mankind's past. The truest reason why is pure coincidence. But that's a pretty big stretch, right? Well, not exactly. In 50-some-odd years of cinema and pop culture, you can find a litany of coincidences. Look at something like the MCU. One movie and there's not a lot to go on. 20 movies in and you've got several guys all named Chris who have been the lead in a Marvel project, if not multiple. Was this some big planned thing? Well, no, it's just that Chris is a fairly common name in the Western world, so if you have 30-something star actors, the chance of 2 of them being named the same thing are pretty good. Just think about how many kids in your school had the same name. Looking hard enough, you can find other coincidences too, like how Akira and the original Blade Runner were both set in 2019. Now the idea that there's some inspiration from one to the other wouldn't be out of the question, but for all things that matter, it's just a total coincidence. But why are these all 2077? Why not 2076 or 2080 or 2075? First, I think it's just a matter of making a date look like it was picked at random. If you're watching a movie or playing a game, you'll feel a lot less immersed if, say, Halo Reach opened with a title that says 2550 rather than 2552. So if you're writing a story like this, you wouldn't want to pick an easy number like 2080 or 2065. Something that's slightly off works best, makes it feel more real. Important things don't just happen once a decade, they happen right in the middle. You know, outside of 2020. With a story like Fallout or Cyberpunk specifically, you also want to make the story feel tangible as far as being an alternate world that is more advanced but still relatable to our culture and society as it is now, rather than the massive forward futures of, say, Warhammer 40k or Halo. Leaving it in the 21st century but many years ahead makes the feasibility of going downtown to get a box of noodles but also assisted by self-driving cars and phones embedded in your head feel a lot more real. It grounds the story as being sci-fi but not too far ahead of our current day lives. Something where you can see it and go, yeah, having a robot housekeeper in 50 years sounds about right, when Fallout is showing off a house that looks more modern, but also features a Mr. Handy in the corner. How come it's only 50 years then? Or maybe 70? Wouldn't the year 2134 still be close enough to be relatable? Or even 2047? Well, they might. We do have Blade Runner 2049. But there's something strange about the way history has worked out on a cycle of churning generations. Basically, the Strauss-Howe theory. Whereas the oldest generation in a cycle comes to an end, something massive changes in our society. And as people live for about 80 years, the cycle resets in about the same length of time. Like how about 80 years ago we had World War II, which definitely changed the course of human history forever. Or 80 years before that was the American Civil War, and before that was the Revolutionary War, etc., etc. So, about 80 years in the future, something big would be set to happen as one generation takes over from the next. In Cyberpunk, we have the domineering takeover by corporations that wage war against the government. In Fallout, we have the Great War, essentially World War III. In a title like Overwatch, there's also a new and massive war and change all the time going on.
Bonjour, officer. We're here to help.
Another big part of why people pick some numbers and not others is that some are just sexier. Not only is 7 a lucky number, but also a sleek one. If I told you there was a story about knightly soldiers going to war against monsters in a fantasy setting, and then I asked you which year would fit this better, 1434 or 1430, you'd probably go with the first. It just sounds more distinct. Even single numbers on their own. Let's play a little game. In the comments below, tell me which of these 3 pairs that you prefer. Do you prefer the number 4 or 8, 2 or 7, 5 or 0? Got your number selected? Because I'm willing to bet you would have picked 8, 7, and 5. You might not be thinking about it, but everyone has subliminal thoughts that lead their thinking. If you had to pick between 2 lotto numbers, 7157 or 6239, I bet you'd be more likely to pick the first. 7 is lucky. It's random, where the second features 2 digits in order, 2 and 3, automatically making it less random even though the first has 2 sevens. It's kind of like the old thing with Apple where they had to make their algorithm for shovel less random on purpose because true random didn't feel random. Now, with all these preferences for numbers and a sleek 7, which is angular in nature and gives off the vibe of a straight-edged future, added with the fact that most people's favorite number is 7, and add on the fact that we need a date that's within the 21st century but roughly 80 years ahead of the present, 2077 feels like an easy choice. It's not too far away that it feels alien. It's far enough out that high tech seems feasible. 7 is a sleek and sexy number that just feels futuristic and fits right into a sci-fi setting. It's the perfect little number to make what is ultimately a bunch of ape brains go full-on neuron activation. But that's all just reading into the surface-level pseudo-psychology of numbers and how they affect the world around us. Basically, this was a long-winded way of saying it was a coincidence born of a human's mind confined by mediocrity. And that's all from me. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, everything else. Join the Discord. Loads of shit if you enjoyed it. Remember to stay cool, have fun, and be awesome. Buster out.